data types and how different scales are used to measure them. Now, what we are going to see is what are the parameters of measurement? Because for kind of depending upon the data, the scale will vary, isn't it? That we have seen in our previous board. We have to understand the level, the direction to learn the scales of measurement. That is more important. If you don't understand the direction, it will be difficult to measure. You will understand this gradually. You will understand this gradually because it takes some time for you to get it well. So what I say here, when you practice with your micro research, it will be easy for you. So let's see how we are going to learn the scales of measurement. If you take something is in a nominal scale, we know that it has no order or ranking. Something in nominal scale, it has no order or rankings. Say like in our real life examples, if you take gender, gender doesn't have an order, isn't it? If you take department, if you take blood group. So the key characteristics of nominal scale, it has no order and there is no classification. Best examples, as I told you, gender and the departments like CS, computer science engineering, electronics engineering, electrical and communication engineering, then blood groups, course types, that all comes in nominal scales. So what are the basic statistical operations we do on this one? We can get frequency, percentage, mode, chi-square test, such kind of statistical operations we can do. This will be a good insight for you. How we will work with data types that comes in nominal scale. The second is ordinal scale. Why it has an order? If you take satisfaction, it has an order, isn't it? Highly satisfied, dissatisfied. So it categorizes with a natural order of ranking. There is a natural order of ranking is there. If you take happiness, there is a natural order of ranking is there. So all ordinal scales has a order or a ranking. And the intervals between each rank, like if you look at the smileys, the intervals are not same, they are different between each. 5 and 1 is different, 4 and 1 is different. So it keeps on changing. The has a order problem. Yeah? It's not a problem, you have to understand. It is like that. So the examples, if you take satisfaction levels, low, medium, high. Why I am talking in a slow pace, you should be able to write notes and understand well. So make sure you are watching this with a headset. The second thing, use a pen and paper to understand and write and scribble and understand the things. If you take education level also, it has an order, school, then college, then university, then next level. Now, if you are agreeing with something or disagree with something also, it has an order, isn't it? Strongly disagree to strongly disagree. So like satisfaction levels, education levels are the real life examples, and the statistical operations, what we do on this kind of ordinal scales or ordinal data, median, we can take percentile, we can do a kind of ranking, we can do non-parametric test. We can do non-parametric test. Then now comes the third kind of scale, that is interval scale. In this one, basically, I told you there is no non-zero. There is no true zero. So it is an ordered scale with equal intervals. This is how we have to see. Ordinary scale, the intervals are not equal. But in interval scale, the intervals are equal because the interval difference between a highly dissatisfied and not dissatisfied or highly satisfied are different. So there is a difference. But in interval, it is same. So it is on equal difference or equal intervals. The difference between 10 degrees Celsius and 20 degrees Celsius is same with us 20 degree and 30 degrees Celsius. So it is equal intervals. I understand now you reduced the confusion between ordinal and interval scale. The next thing, there is no true zero because there is no arbitrary zero. The differences are meaningful differences. Say like temperature, 0 degree Celsius or 0 degree Fahrenheit. IQ score, calendar years, attitude scores, all comes in interval scale. So what kind of statistical operations we use in this one? We can use mean, standard deviation. You see the deviation. You can do correlations. You can do t-test, analysis of variance, ANOVA. So we have discussed what is a nominal scale, what is an ordinary scale, what is the interval scale, what are the key differences between an ordinary scale and an interval scale. We have seen the key characteristics. We have identified some variables as examples. We also given real-time examples, and we have seen what are the statistical operations, what we basically do on nominal scale, ordinal scale, and interval scale. Now we are moving to the fourth one, that is ratio scale. Here, there is a true zero is there. In ratio scale, there is a true 0 point. Intervals are equal, but there is a true 0 point. What is true 0 point? There is nothing. When you say temperature is 0, it says nothing. No, that is one part. It is a non-zero. It is a measurement. So these ratios are meaningful. Like we use age, height, income, weight, time in seconds, all comes in ratio scales. So we can do all arithmetic operations and we can do all advanced statistical tests. Why this board is important for you? Because you are fetching data. The data, what kind of data? This data indicates some relations. And we are going to test these relations, isn't it? So all are coming from primarily from what? Your variables and the scale what you use. Based on that, you get the data type. You collect data using your data collection tools such as interview, questionnaire, observation, and you have to validate that data, because if you have developed a tool, you cannot use it at once. You have to do a pilot testing with some good 50 samples, or depending upon the type of the questionnaire, what you use or data collection tool. Then we have to validate the reliability and how this data, the data collector, how it is suitable for analysis with an expert statistician. So the bottom line or the foundation greenery for this board is choose the right scale, design the right tool, collect the right data. These three, then you'll get the right results. So this is just for your understanding what are the parameters of measurement, because if you know it, you will understand which are the ideal statistical tests for that. Now, we are going to see how we can embed this data type into a tool, or how this data can be collected using a data collection tool. So if you take a numerical data, it is quantitative, it is in number. So for us, this numerical data type means what? It is in numbers and they can be counted or measured. Example, if you are studying on the student performance, GPA, or age, income, test scores, number of users, this all comes in number. So the best way, you can use a questionnaire with the closed-ended options, isn't it? How many? Two example, you can ask like, you can straight take the numbers and you can note it down. How many times? How many exams you have done? 24. How many exams you passed? 22. Means now you don't have to ask how many exams you failed, isn't it? Because the person has passed, done 24 exams in an exam and passed 22 course units, that 2 we can calculate. Now, look at another type of data, that is something related to user experience, which are qualitative in nature. Maybe it can be about opinion, feelings, beliefs, perceptions. So if you recall, on the previous session, I told you about how open distance learning or learning management systems, digital systems, are going to improve student performance. So in that study, the student views on online learning, challenges faced, personal experience. So we can have a semi-structured interview or a structured interview, and you can understand the things in depth. Why we use interviews? Because the respondent is not stick to a kind of closed answering, isn't it? They can elaborate more. They can really interpret their views and opinions. So that is why we use open-ended question. And basically, I tell you, they captures the most enriched details. You get all things in detail. You get all kind of information that numbers cannot explain. Because when you talk to people, when you ask them to explain how they feel, you'll get a real understanding. So these are qualitative nature. Next is behavioral, like by observation. By observation, we can capture a lot of information, data on actions, data on performance, how people are attending, how much they are using. So these all comes under observation. And observations also, we can make structured and unstructured observations. So in observation, it is structured. You will have a checklist. You have a list with you, what all things you are going to check and what all ranges you have checked. And observations is the cross section of real life. It's real time data. It provides, because it is not being explained by somebody orally. It is not being endorsed by somebody using a data collection questionnaire. No, it is you watch live and you are seeing the real time evidences of people behavior, rather than not getting a verbal output from them. Now, there is another thing, is a secondary data, or you can exist in records. That is already available in the documents, in the database, or in the records. So like the previous academic transcripts, organization reports, medical reports, depending upon the kind of research what you do, government statistics, such anything. So here what happens, what you will be doing, you are having a document and you collect and analyze that existing document. The good thing with this, you save time, cost, provides reliable and historical or background data. Some researchers used to ask me, can we do a PhD only by using these data and records or secondary? There is no harm in doing that one, but you have to check on the reality. Research is either bridging the gap or adding a new knowledge. It is good when you say you have bridged the gap, to an extent it is okay. But a question may be asked to you, what is your contribution? I bridge the how? Have you collected something of your own? Do you own some data of your own? Then you may be in trouble. So what I want to tell you here, how good is each tool and how we can use these tools to collect data. So now on this board, we are going to see how to design a tool. A tool here, a data collection tool. So with some examples, I give 1 to 6 steps. You can have more steps, but I'm giving you 1 to 6 steps. And there is one more step 7, that is validation, that will come later. So when you develop a good instrument, a data collection instrument, it should be valid, it should be reliable. So we have to do reliability checks. We are going to discuss that one. And these tools should be in aligned with your variables, because these tools should help us to fetch data which are in aligned with your variables. So let's go to the steps. First question, or the first step, the question construction. Because what you ask, depending upon that, you get an answer. The basic fundamental thing, if your question is appropriate, you will get the appropriate answer. So nowadays, it is easy for us using trained language models to make sure that the question is properly drafted. When we all were doing research, we don't have such facility. So we write, we rewrite. So what I want to tell you, the step 1 is question construction. You write clear, specific, unambiguous questions that measure what actually you intend to measure. We'll see some examples. Suppose if you want to literally get a numerical data, how many hours do you study online per week? Don't ask a double barrel questions, because what is a double barrel questions? In one question, you try to extract 2 data. So like if you ask, how many hours do you study online per week, and which time you prefer to study? Isn't it? It is a double question, isn't it? So I'm saying in a simple way of understanding. Don't embed one more question in another question, so that you may think that, okay, this will save time, this will save space, this will save the respondent's time. No, these are wrong perceptions. In spite of what you say, you will get into wrong conclusions. See, if you ask such a question which is double barrel, sometimes your respondent will not give a proper answer. Secondly, they may fail to understand the appropriateness of the question, and for you, you are the loser, because you won't get the correct data. So you have learned how to draft your questions or write your questions. The second thing, you may be writing a set of questions, but it need to be sequentially arranged. There should be a logical flow, because we are giving this to human beings, isn't it? So the basic pattern, the better flow, what we normally use is, starts with demographics, then with the data related to independent variables, then to dependent variables, then we can get open-ended feedback. You'll understand this as you go through different examples. So the how to write, how to organize. Now, in the third part, we are going to see the indicators, because each variable may need a number of indicators to fetch the real data. This was the last question being asked by Vanessa. But this is something different. Actually, this is not like if you have one independent variable, how many dependent variables you have, or it is not like one dependent variable, how many independent variables you have. Here, if you look at here, I have one variable, online learning quality, which is independent, that really affects my dependent variable, student satisfaction. So the things what I can get as indicators to represent the quality of online learning are platform usability, quality of the content, interaction with instructor, and technical support. These are not separate variables. These are the indicators that represents my independent variable. Now, my dependent variable, student satisfaction, we can check the overall student satisfaction, likelihood the student recommend this platform to second student, and how much they are using, continue to use intention, because are they just worried and no, I don't want to use. No, these are the indicators that shows the efficacy of the platform. So once you get these indicators, now you have to see what is the scale. If in demographics, gender, we can give this categorical scale, male, female. Nowadays we start other. Then if you check for satisfaction, then you can use satisfaction level, low, medium, and high. Or you can use Likert scale. You can use Likert scale, like 1 represents strongly disagree and 5 represents strongly agree. Now, the hours of usage, for that you can use ratio scale. You can use the ratio scale, and it will help you the numbers with true, zero, how many hours they use and how it works. So this is how we use the scale. The purpose of the scale is how to fetch the data. The next is wordings. When you write the questions, the wordings are important. Use simple, neutral, and respondent-friendly language. You may be a PhD scholar. You have done multiple PhDs or multiple post-graduations. Your English is so good. You are fearsome in using most complicated words of the Oxford University is dictionary. I know people who use big sentences, what we see in Shakespeare's drama, and they can listen, they can by heart, they can repeat, they can reproduce. But I'll suggest, if you want to get a proper data, proper information from your respondent, better use simple, neutral, respondent-friendly language. You have to understand to what category of people you are going. So depending upon that, you have to design. Now, just think that you are going to have a survey on a high-end scientist of a specific domain. They are working scientists. They have their own class of addressing things, understanding things, and presenting things. So to that community, if you go with substandard questions, it will be difficult. So basically, I'll tell you, you have to use proper wordings. Don't use poor wordings like this. To what extent do you perceive the platform's effectiveness in enhancing your learning outcome? You see, it's a very complicated word. Some people, if they write questions, they may not be able to put a full stop because they cannot end that question. They keep on asking. You might see this in television shows. They say lengthy, they ask you lengthy questions instead of a straight line question. If you don't use proper wording, if you use poor wording, that will lead to a trouble elephant in the room, because your respondent may not be in a state to ask you, can you clarify better? That will be difficult. So the better wording for the above question, it can be how effective is the platform in helping to learn, and you can put options. not effective, slightly effective, moderately, very effective, extremely effective. So this is how we have to use the wordings. The wordings represents the question what you ask and the response what you expect. So once all these are done, now your instrument is almost ready to collect data. So once this is drafted, you have to check with your variables. Does the questions ensure the indicators of the data or the indicator that represents your variables in the conceptual model? You can see here, your variable, independent variable online learning quality depends upon platform usability, quality of content, interaction with instructor, and technical support. So what I say here, when you draft your questionnaire or your tool, then you double check whether it is aligning each other. So online learning, whether questions have all these things. Did we shifted one question to other question by mistake? Then if you look at student satisfaction, the overall satisfaction, how you take, and are you going to recommend the platform to other people? Are you going to use it continuously? So, each board, I take much more time to explain because of the reason, if we rush on these boards, that becomes a skating board for us, where we are untrained and you chances of falling down like that, your data collection will not be proper because the tool designed is not proper. So the key takeaway is define the variables, and once you drafted your tool, align with the variables and objective. Thus, the data, what you are going to collect through these variables are really indicators of what these variables represent. So sum up, a good design, good data. Good data, strong research findings. So what you have to see, a well-designed tool, if you have well-designed data collection tool, this will give you accurate data. And of course, your analytics will be better, the results will be better, and the conclusions what you make will be also good. I hope you have learned how to design the tool, because each one of you have your own micro research. So use your micro research and follow all the 6 steps. Now, in the 6th board, I'm going to the 7th step, that is how to validate the tool. Now, if you look in the research scenario, you can get validated tools, or you can develop a tool and you can validate. So I'm going to tell you how we are going to validate a tool what you have developed. If you take, there are 6 kind of reliability tests what we do when you develop a questionnaire or data collection tool. The first one is called as face validity. No, in appearance, how it looks like. You can check with somebody, to your friends, or maybe how I made a data collection tool. Can you go through and just tell me how it looks like? So like they can review and say that, okay, it's good actually, or some changes has to be done, isn't it? The second one is called as content validity, because you have to make sure the tool covers all dimensions of what you are trying to take. Like online learning means what all dimensions, and how the tool is interactive, and how it is highly usable to collect data. That is content. The third one is construct validity. What is a construct validity? Here what happens is the tool really getting into the theoretical construct what we intend to measure, isn't it? Because your theoretical construct only gives you the variables once you embed that in your conceptual model. Before you get into conceptual model, you read a lot of theories, isn't it? So you may be using multiple theories. So you have to use a theoretical framework, then you follow the conceptual framework. So we have to see whether there is a mismatch or there is a match with the theoretical framework. That is how we validate the construct. The next one is pilot testing. In pilot testing, what we do, we give the tool to a set of sample to identify the problems, because they'll tell you what is the problems. Then basically maybe you can give to some 30 to 40 students, check for a timing. You can check timing, how much time each respondent will take, whether they are confused or they are with clarity. This is a kind of pilot testing. Then it is good to consult with people who are experts. Find an expert, submit your question, and ask them for relevance, clarity, how competitive it is good, and whether they are appropriate or not. So at least you can discuss with some 1 or 2 or 3 experts. Of course, one will be your research guide. You can get with people who are in the same field. Then what we do is the reliability. What we do is reliability, and for reliability, we use the Cronbach Alpha test. So people say Cronbach Alpha test. I'll explain what is it in detail. For the time being, if the Cronbach Alpha test is 0.87, it indicates there is an internal consistency. So I'll tell you what is this Cronbach Alpha test does. You ask a set of questions. Sometimes some question may not be relevant. It is out of scope of that section, or out of scope of what you're going to fetch actually. So this means that the questions, because what is the purpose of questions? You have to get intentions. The purpose of the questions are not served well. So we have to do a kind of test called as Cronbach Alpha test. And depending upon the Cronbach Alpha test, the score above 90 or 90 is very high. 0.9 is high. And basically, if it is between 0.8 and 0.75, it is acceptable. So we check the internal reliability, internal consistency of the questions what we drafted. We check the internal consistency of the questions. It is more important. For this, we use this Cronbach Alpha guide. And the scores are given you, but I'll explain this in detail. Now, let's see how these things work, because the phase validity helps you to ensure things are getting better, or everything is required is there. Then you ensure the coverage. Then you verify the theoretical fitness. Then you can do a small pilot test, discuss with the experts, and finally you confirm the reliability, because doing the reliability test is a must. So it ensures that the tool what you use is valid. How it becomes valid? Because it becomes reliable and your data will have high quality. Now, so I'm going to give you some basic thing about the Cronbach Alpha test. The Cronbach Alpha test, the basic idea, because it is good if you learn from a good statistician, but I'm going to explain from my level of knowledge what I have. So the Cronbach Alpha test is help you to test the concepts in your research instruments are valid or not. Basically, people takes time to understand these things. I'll tell you, don't worry, it may take some time for you to understand. But the basic idea of this test, what you are supposed to measure, and we are going to see whether this is the only way to measure it. So some researchers may use a single question, straight to straight question, but I say no. So to understand a student's satisfaction, you can use a 1 to 5 set of questions, but there should be internal consistency between the questions. So when you use a set of questions, a number of questions to get one specific information, then there should be internal consistency between the questions, what you ask. There should be internal consistency between the questions what you ask. That is more important. So just give me a few minutes. 1 second. I see. Just give me a minute.